Hello and welcome to Shape the System, where we find and tell the stories that help people to rethink the way the world works. We interview people from all over the world who are helping to change our systems for the better. Shape the System is an independent podcast with support from KPMG High Growth Ventures, who help ambitious founders and their teams scale up for success. More about KPMG High Growth Ventures after the interview. We hope you enjoy this episode.
The brother of Mike Tyson, so then, they get that.
And that's great. Well, that's a wonderful way to start us off. We'll be talking to the brother of Mike Tyson. Today we're talking to Johan Tijssen from Hempblock International. So welcome everyone to the show. We're always funnily getting into this. We actually haven't talked a lot about this topic in the 5.5 years or so we've been running. So I'm actually quite excited to get into this today. We're going to be talking about building and everything that's wrong with the way we build predominantly houses, but I think structures generally, but certainly houses is going to be the focus today. So before we get into all of that, I want to ask you, Johan, just introduce yourself and how did you come to be arriving at working on this problem of, housing and building houses?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Vincent, for having me on the show. Well, I'm Johan Tijssen, an entrepreneur, and I've been builder for half of my life. My passion is really the way we build things. So with 25 years of experience in hempcrete and hemp-lime composites, I founded a global company called Hempblock International, where we guide clients through a painless process from design to construction and then using a fast and efficient building system. So traditionally, wall systems are complex that require multiple trades and materials. And we've got this one product that's with three ingredients of the wall. We can build sustainable walls that have good properties. How did I get involved, Vincent? Well, I like to do things myself. I'm not like someone else will build my house. No way, I'm going to build my own house. So I've been in the creative industry for a long time. Done a lot of traveling and things, and then became a builder because when I arrived in Australia, I thought, hold on, here you can build your own home. In Holland, where I'm originally from, it's all a little bit harder to build your own house, to find land, and all these things seem to be getting harder and harder. And here I could make this happen. So I became a builder, from a carpenter to a builder. And while building, I was asking the help of a friend of mine, help me clean up. He was in between jobs. And John said, I'm going to be an agronomist. That's my next job again. I'm going to grow hemp, industrial hemp. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. And he mentioned the fact that I could build houses with hemp. And of course, that triggered my curiosity. I made the joke that, if the house would burn, everyone would get high.
I'm sure no one's made that joke before.
No, those jokes from everyone else. But so he lent me a book of Steve Allen, one of the founders of hempcrete construction. And I was totally fascinated. I was totally fascinated by the fact that this one wall thickness would encase everything, would do everything, would insulate, would fireproof it. It would have a load-bearing element in it. Hempcrete is never load-bearing by itself. It's not like a concrete. It will have an element in it. So I was totally fascinated on the thickness of the wall, the longevity, and its performance. So from there, all due to great circumstances, really, because his boss or the person that hired him was based here in town and was also a hemp entrepreneur, if you want to call it that way. Already from the olden days, like he started with industrial hemp to introduce that into Australia. And so I partnered up with him and ended up taking over a little kind of startup struggling company called Hempcrete Australia, and brought built that up to a running company with certification, with training programs, with what else did we have? A manual, and so on. So yeah, I scaled it from there, so to speak.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of things in there that are interesting because often when we talk to people on the show, they have some background that leads them into a place that is desperate need of innovation, and then they work on the problem and they innovate. It sounds like you were in a place and you came across an innovation and saw the opportunity to blow up the innovation, as in like to make it bigger, which is a different and an unusual pathway. I want to talk a lot more about the hemp blocks and hempcrete generally and a lot of the properties. Full disclosure, I'm actually building a house next year and planning to use hemp block, which is how I've actually come across Johan, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
So which I'm actually really pumped about. And so the properties of the product itself are really interesting to me. But I want to come back a step, as we always do, to try to understand like what's wrong with the way we build houses today. And I guess it's interesting that you said you were in Holland and were battling to say buy a block of land and build there, and came to Australia and found it possible to do that. Yet so many people in Australia, in my experience, would go, "Oh my God, it's so challenging and impossible." Regardless of whether either of those, how those points play out and what that looks like today, and perhaps when you moved, why is it that building is so hard and so expensive? Not just relating to the brick part of it, the wall part of it, but just more broadly.
Well, first of all, this is like 20 something years ago. Like, so things were a little bit easier. I bought my land. I bought my own land, built a house, and that was possible. Now here in town, those prices have quadrupled. You don't get anything like under $1 million, pretty much. Things are dearer. So why things are dearer in Australia? Not sure if the price. I can't, unless I really go and try to do the same thing here and back in Europe at the same time. Well, Holland is not really Europe. Gosh, I'd rather not judge on put my money out there on building currently in Europe and here, because I'm just not building, but I know about building in Australia more than in Europe. So the comparison,
Sure, in Australia is fine.
yeah, the comparison, I'm not sure, but things got expensive here, due to, I reckon, due to the big panic that has been created and this whole COVID thing, and things just got cranked up unnecessarily financially. Wages didn't really go up, and I don't know, like the world seems a bit out of balance when it comes down to construction. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's not clear to me either. And I think the thing I guess where I'm going with this is it feels like there's some supply challenges, right? There's the same level of demand, more or less, depending on immigration and birth rates and the like. But if you take the demand picture out, the supply side had price shocks when you had materials coming in, and then you had labour shocks we've been running it in Australia at least 4% unemployment. It's not different in the US. It's roughly the same unemployment figures. And then that's general unemployment. But if you think about the availability of people to do this type of work, you talked right up front about the complexity of building a traditional wall, right? A traditional wall has 4 or 5 or 10 different moving parts to actually build the wall. And therefore you need 8 or 10 different trades to be able to execute each of those parts in a coordinated fashion.
Yeah,
so the complexity of building in the traditional way has a whole bunch of other challenges which are only exacerbated when you have supply shortages.
Well, so there's a combination of both, Vincent. So you're right. Like the standard building methods require lots of different trades and moving parts, and then they all need their transport. They all need their deliveries. They need their space. They need people to come in and out. There's a lot of stuff that happens in standard building as it is at the moment, especially the walls. Walls are really like a complex system, and even more so back in Europe, because in Europe they're more stringent about what is happening in those walls, how well they perform, how well they insulate, and so on and so on. I was shocked here to learn that in Queensland, and this will slowly get out of fashion, but there was this 17 millimeter stud, yeah, at 450 spacing, uh, with a bit of paper. Okay, there's building paper and fiber cement on one end, fiber cement of 3.5 millimeters, and then plaster
Mhm.
on the other with a bit of fluffy insulation in the middle. That would be the wall. To me, like the wall, a wall is always something impossible to penetrate, unless with a tank, perhaps. But here
Right.
you can, with a rugby run, you can run through a wall. Hopefully, you don't hit it
Right.
with this in the stud, but in between the studs, you can bash through a wall here with a fist.
Right. Even an external facing wall.
Even external facing walls. What kind of wall is that? It's even behind you. If that's just plasterboard, and then a little bit of cladding on the other side, you just bang a hole in it. So the whole concept, we hit a brick wall. That's also saying, the concept of a wall is changed to some kind of fluffy, small, thin thing that in tornadoes you see them just collapsing. Like cardboard houses. It's crazy. So so that part, I couldn't grasp that. I thought, wow, is that all you can get away with here in Queensland? That is slightly changing now. That the studs gonna going up to 90 mil, um, and there's more requirements now for insulation, and so on and so on. But that's one of the things that really pulled me into the hempcrete, where we had a stick wall that was not penetratable, unless you really hack into it. Actually, it's really hard to to bash through a hempcrete wall. You'd be with a sledgehammer. You'd be there for at least half an hour before you get a good hole in it. So yeah, I was attracted to that, and yeah, when it comes down to building, yeah, there's so much to learn from other systems in the world, here in Australia. So,
Mm.
hmm,
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds to me like in a rush to try to work out how to do this stuff faster, cheaper, quote unquote, better. The the complexity's gone up, but they've narrowed down to, well, we don't need all of these large physical things to make this thing work, but have sacrificed the simplicity of a wall that might have been done previously, double brick with mortar, the stuff run between it, and the natural insulation that comes from having two sets of bricks, separated by air, into a thing that has multiple moving parts, a lot more complexity in how you actually get it done, and actually a lot less outcome in terms of how it performs from a thermal perspective, or any of the other strength perspectives. So it's kind of like we've kind of cut our own nose to spite our face. And I'm not, I don't have enough of a view on other countries, but I've certainly spent a bit of time in the US, and it doesn't seem to be an Australia specific challenge. It seems to be the way that the world has kind of decided just to build houses, and at what loss. So if you kind of use that as a sort of a basis for how we're doing this poorly, help me understand kind of the core hemp block system. You said there's two or three different parts, but the main system that that you talk about for building a wall that might have some load bearing parts to it.
yeah, okay. Well, Vincent, so the hempcrete by itself is a mix of hemp wood particles. They're small little particles of hemp wood. They're like balsa wood, mixed with lime and water. So they form a matrix called hempcrete, and that is kind of a fluffy matrix that will end up going really hard, and over time actually petrifies, because the hemp wants to go. The lime encases the hemp and just petrifies it, just like a fossil. So that's the matrix number one. Then, because if you really want to make that load bearing, so bear a load, so to make it really strong, you have to compact that a lot, and by compacting it a lot, you lose the insulation values of these beautiful particles of hemp that are kind of they're quite open in structure. And so we don't do that. We don't make a concrete out of hempcrete. So we keep it kind
Right.
of fluffy, yet strong, and it's got a good MPA. It's got a good strength. So the 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 walls need something to carry the loads, and I've invented a system, where inside the blocks, and I'll show one block here. So these blocks are they're tongue and groove.
Scaled down, obviously.
They click together. They this is a small one. Yeah, they don't need mortar or glue. They click together, and they have a tongue and groove all around. And inside there's a hole. In these holes, it's particular spacings. We download a fiber reinforced polymer or a steel, or perhaps a concrete steel post and beam system. So and once that is done and the windows are in, we render the whole lot with a lime render. So 1, 2, 3 components: hemp blocks, a load-bearing posts and beam system, and then lime render on 2 sides. That's it, and it's all natural. And the post and beam system can, as I said, the original system can be steel reinforced concrete, which I stepped away from um, and engineered this post and beam system, which is super simple, bolted, screwed, clicked together, and yeah, that provides your load bearing structure for the home.
Yeah, and so I've got a bunch of questions, but I'm going to start with the load bearing thing because we just finished up on there. So you essentially have kind of almost like a skeleton, right? There's a skeleton that lives inside these interlocking hemp blocks, and
Correct.
it does the work of holding the structure up. It's actually like a skeleton. I'm glad I thought of that analogy. But in terms of how that thing gets put together, there's a concrete slab, and it has some things that extrude from it that you're bolting that skeleton to, and then you're putting in, and it's going obviously through the hole in the hempcrete block as you showed. My question is about just the skill level required and expected to assemble this. So let's ignore the blocks for the minute and just focus on the skeleton. What type of person, and if someone's trying to build a 3-bed 2-bath scale home, maybe 200 square meter home, like what's the level of effort required for how many people to sort of put that skeleton together and put it up?
Well, what you mentioned to me before about your belts, you're having this fantastic innovative belt that you make. You put these belts together. It's quite complex.
Yeah.
I think it's got magnets and so on. It's a patented system as well. Congratulations on that one, anyway. But
Thank
so
you.
if you can do that, you can build a hemp block house. It's really very simple. Going to the foundation, you said concrete slab. It doesn't have to be a concrete slab. It can be a timber frame as well, a timber floor, like a timber post and beam system. On the
Yeah.
floor, we put like a stanchion, it's called a stanchion or a stump, or we put a little post, a tiny post with a foot, so that foot is anchored to the floor. And over that foot, we place the blocks. Off we go. We build those walls up quite quickly, about 10 minutes per square meter. Build those walls up, and then we lower down a post in the top, so we don't have to lift those blocks over the posts. We lower down a post, connect that post at the bottom, and then go on with our ring beam at the top. Now around that post, because we don't want that post really fitting that tight into that block, around that post we need a glue or something that sticks it all together. And I worked out that a perlite, which is a volcanic, it's like a popcorn made out of volcanic rock. Perlite and cement, it is in very low dosage of cement, is a fantastic insulating mix that is yet breathable and lightweight and just does the job perfectly. So it insulates, sounds, fire, and is lightweight. So yeah, so the blocks are stacked up. They'll have a little stanchion, a starter post on the floor. The posts, and you'll see all that happening in your house. The posts lowered down, connected to the floor, and then perlite goes around it, and then the ring beam will be the same system. So
And the perlite's like a liquid that goes around it? It's poured into it or something?
like a porridge type, slurry, lightweight, just fine grains, and it's really easy to work with. So skill wise, well, because you're building a wall, you still need some kind of carpenter or a builder to keep everything, sorted, so that there's no forgetting screws or attaching things, or a builder will, because it's a walling element. No one can build a wall. That's actually not true. Owner builders, they can totally build their walls, but I reckon I always recommend to have a builder on site or a carpenter to supervise
Yeah.
at least.
But I guess I meant the point relating to builder is if the builder says, hey, we've got a 3 day window of nice weather and I need to get 4 people in to build, I don't know, 60 meters of walls
Hmm.
that go up 3 meters, then those people don't necessarily have to have 4 years of trade skills to be able to come in. I mean, yeah,
Absolutely. So to stack the boxes, yeah, like Lego, you can send a packet of Lego to to your helpers just in advance to have them play with that, and then do it on a big scale. So it's super simple, really. They're interlocking. Of course, there's a few tricks and trades to getting them together, and that's why we give
yeah,
the training. We give a very solid, thorough 3 day training where we go through all the steps from start to end, how to build those walls. And yeah,
mm.
the trainings are always fun. There's a fantastic amount of people that come along, and
I watched some of the videos. I watched some of the videos previously on the training. It does actually look like a lot of fun. I feel like it. I remember when I was spending time in the US, there was a lot of kind of a Habitat for Humanity. I think is the non-profit over there. I think they're everywhere. Actually, I think they're just in the US. And they would have these things where they get 60 people together and build a house, and suddenly there's a house available for a family that don't have a house. I feel like when you do the training sessions, what are you're building? Obviously, what is it that you're actually building for? Is there a thing that you build for, like someone's home, or
well, we've done all our trainings on a building site all over the place, like Fiji, US, England. I just came back from England, and in Australia, a bunch of places. So I would go there, make sure everything is there, help the builder or the owner to equip themselves, and so on. Blocks will be available. We get a bunch of people, get some nice food, and off we go. We build 3 sites on site normally. Um, so we build their home. We help building their home the first 3 days. In England, for example, we kind of nearly finished their house because we had so many people come up there, 2 builders with their crew, and some other interested people, and just the walls just came up so fast. So we're up there like
yeah,
for 3/4 almost through. And then now because I want to make sure that people are able to see the blocks. We've hired a warehouse, so a warehouse in Caloundra, Sunshine Coast, Queensland, where we build something that we can then transport out. So it's basically a cabin, and that cabin it will be built in two phases with 2 trainings, and yeah, that's very successful because that's indoor, so it doesn't matter if it rains, if there's shine, everything is there, tools are there, it's under control of myself or a trainer. I've got a fantastic female trainer that's absolutely onto the system, and she's going to build
yeah.
her own house with her family. Yeah, so we give the trainings, and yeah, it's
I
either.
want to talk a bit about the training in a sec as well. I want to come back though to something we've kind of glossed over a little bit, which is the properties of these blocks. And you talked about hemp specifically, but there's obviously been a bit of a balance of, as you said, how much it's compressed and what fills in there versus how wide they are and everything else. So narrowing down specifically on one of your interlocking blocks, the 350 mil ones that are used for a wall, probably a load bearing wall. Talk me through all of those properties, and maybe compare it to this thing we were talking about right up front, this 60 mil stud wall or whatever it was.
Yeah, 70 mil stuff. Yeah, okay. So
Brilliant.
our blocks are 300 mil thick. That's like a big foot thick. Is 600 long. It's long, and then 308. Well, basically 300 mil is high. Yeah, correct. And they're,
Yep.
they're about 18 kilos. The ones with the hole are a bit lighter, and then we have a U block right for the top. They're even lighter again. I found that anyone can lift these blocks. I had 80-year-old women stacking up blocks, and no way. Um, so those blocks they have a really good sound insulation, and I can throw you some figures, but I don't think it really matters. The main ones are the R ratings. We are up to 4.2, and with render 4.8, R 4.8, which is a really solid thermal insulation. Then we have a fire rating of over 3 hours. So the last test we did in Melbourne, after 3 hours, we said, don't worry going for another fourth hour, because it's not going to go anywhere. It's just a waste of gas. It's not burning, right? So we've got an FRL fire, FLR, fire load rating of 180, 180, 180, 3 hours, minutes they go in, which is then equivalent. It passes the flame zone, where which is a bushfire rating, BAL, bushfire attack load, and they're the main features. Because I was talking about the lightweight, what you mentioned before, it's the fact that it's lightweight, that all those little particles of hemp, they're like beehive structure with lots of holes in it. Again, they transfer humidity, even when they're purified and encased in the lime. So they transfer humidity. And another fantastic property of hempcrete by itself is that it transfers humidity. So it has a natural balance within the building of your humidity levels, and you will experience that once you're in your home, that it's just comfortable year round. So you see, the way the way we experience comfort is actually the temperature on our skin. This is not necessarily the temperature in the air, but it's how our skin feels, and that is related to humidity. We all know dry heat or wet heat, super humid.
Yeah.
And the temperature might not even be that different, but it's the humidity. So if the humidity is constant and at a very comfortable rate, and the temperature is there, it creates a very comfortable place to live in year round.
So just recapping. I'm sorry, go.
Without the need of extra heating and cooling.
Yeah, which is, I'll talk a bit about my build in a sec, because I think it's going to be highly relevant to what we're talking about. But it's kind of the good four horsemen here, right? So sound insulation, thermal insulation, moisture, and a flame zone or fire resistance in whatever way you want to put it, which is not necessarily relevant to everyone, certainly relevant to where I'm building, which is completely in flame zone. Just the moisture one's an interesting one, though. So what you're essentially saying is that if you live inside a house, you've got 3-4 people living in the house, cooking on the stove and steam's coming out, you end up in a position where you might have high levels of humidity in the house relative to outside, and the hemp blocks would essentially allow that humidity to transfer from the inside to the outside. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it will pass. So there's what they're calling about a dew point. Dew point is the point where the humidity in the air forms a drip. So that will not happen in a hemp house unless you're obviously exaggerating and you're exceeding the capacity of that wall to take it on. Just it will eventually do it, but so good ventilation is always good for every house. It doesn't matter really where you are. Good ventilation. I like top ventilation where air can flow through, or excess air or humidity can get out. So if a lot of steam happens inside, that wall will have to work a little bit to get that out, but it won't remain there and form condensation and just be there. Of course, there's a tolerance if you start steaming 50 kettles with 10 liters of water. Someday it's got to go somewhere.
Just running an indoor sauna or something.
Indoor sauna. Actually, it's really good for sauna, this stuff, but yeah, that's kind of how it works. So you still need your good ventilation, regardless, to make sure that you are able to get rid of excess. But yeah, the balls are breathing.
And so a question about because right up front you talked about how you kind of went on this journey because you discovered this product in a way, not the product that you do have today, but the idea of hemp being used in houses, this application of hemp, and kind of went on that journey. And it's the distinction that the idea of using hemp to build buildings has been around for a while, but what you've been able to do at Hempblock International is to solve the more practical issues of how do you build with it practically in terms of assembly and on-site and waste and the how skilled you need to be able to use it. Like these are the kind of critical innovations that you've introduced along the way. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, correct. So the original hempcrete in situ application means that you have a timber frame, like a post and beam or a timber frame, and then you cast the hempcrete around that. So you need your formwork. You have to create the hempcrete somewhere on the building site, mix it up, add the water, add the lime, add the hemp, mix it up, put it into a bucket, put that into the formwork, and then tamp it on. It's not, you don't ram it like rammed earth, but you tamp it around the frame, and off you go. Slowly, those walls will then be built up. I started with that, and I thought it was fantastic, and it is fantastic. The great thing about it is that you have this one monolithic wall, and it's also a very communal thing to do because you actually need quite a few people to move that forward fast. So I wanted to again innovate it and go faster. So I invested a lot of time and R&D and money into trying to pump it because everyone go like, just put it in a concrete pump. I thought, all right, fair enough. It took actually like over a year to work out which pump could be the best. And so I imported this special pump from Italy, flew it over because I had this 2-story home. I thought we needed over there, and tried to pump this stubborn material through a pipe. Now it was not really successful. It was a struggle because even with the best system, which is a shotcrete system, it would clog up, and we ended up bashing and putting rods through pipes to unclog it. Because anyway, that was okay. That is the application of putting those things together, or getting the hemp where I needed to. And then you can spray hemp as well. Hempcrete, you can spray it against the surface with the timber frame still in the middle. So you have a board on the back, and you spray that, and then you screed it off at the front. I've tried that as well. It's pretty messy, but it works. But when it came down to when I designed the block, I thought, okay, what is needed on the work side? Just the block and the load bearing system. So that must be way simpler than trying to stock all this hemp, which is it has to be stocked dry, all this lime to mix it up on site. So take away the mixing up on site and take away the timber frame as well, because timber frames have their flaws. You really need a carpenter to put your timber frame together. You can buy them prefabricated if you want to, but then you need your crane and so on. That needs to be treated. That's got still termite problems and so on, and is still a timber and another element that something can go wrong, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of focused on this block where we would just stack the blocks together with a simple tongue and groove system, and enter the load bearing system right from the top. Once once the walls are up. So the way I designed it is to make it as simple as possible, and it's not the end because I have other designs in mind, and they will come once we start creating other factories. But that's kind of how I landed.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting for me about it is that if we tend to think about building a custom home and someone has to get on site with a bunch of bricks and trowels or maybe some precast concrete or pour concrete slab or timber frame, as you said. And then we think all the way at the other end. Someone makes a modular home and the whole thing's made in a factory, and there's a lot of pros for doing that. But you kind of, even when you make it modular, you end up with basically it has to be any one of these options as long as it's one of these 3 options. It has to be, and that doesn't suit every site and doesn't suit every taste or configuration or whatever. And so it feels like what you're doing is kind of in the middle, where it's like you can build your custom home, but we can give you the building blocks to build your custom home without having to do custom work at every single step of the journey, which feels fascinating to me because it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. The smaller pieces are all done off site and come in absolutely standardized and beautiful, but small enough that they can be part of a larger system that is completely customizable. Is that kind of how you think about it and positioning it as much as everything else?
Yeah, correct. Because prefabricated walls they get more and more in fashion, and we are also providing them. We also work with prefabricated walls, but not everyone wants to afford a crane. Not everywhere that a crane can even get, or it's going to be expensive to
Right.
lift things over. And there's electricity, and there's slopes, and there's all kinds of situations that don't allow that. So yeah, the block can just be carried in, even if you in the backyard, you can just carry your blocks through and stack
Yeah.
up those blocks and create your walls. So yeah, in the end, I wanted to create something that empowers the builder or the owner builder, the owner of the home, to build their own home again. Because I mean, it's always been like that. Really, in the olden days, there were people that were knowledgeable on building, but people would always build their own homes, and the whole family would.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
hempcrete or the blocks, hempcrete blocks, brought that back again, and that is so beautiful
Yeah.
to see. Like we have owner builders that are building, for example, around Maruya. They just there in the weekend or when they have time off, they get there. They probably live in a caravan meanwhile, and they build their own home whilst being an absolutely these people are not builders, but they learned to be a builder, and they're so into it. It's so fantastic to see that they are now,
Mm.
they have this dream of, "Okay, we're going to build our own house and make it a good house," because have that combination of doing it yourself and doing it properly with a sustainable product that is obviously good for the environment, but also that will provide your shelter, your fire shelter, and then your shelter against the cold and the heat. So I just love the fact that we are able to provide these materials and empower people to build their own home again.
Yeah, I mean, I have like, in just using myself as an example. By the way, I was laughing before because I've just found out last week there's no way I can get a crane to lift stuff on site for some of the things I need to do
There you
because
go.
it's such a steep block and it's power line. So the fact that someone can walk in with an 18 kilogram thing down a small stair or whatever we have to build to get down to where the blocks are going to go is an amazing thing. But the related point I was going to say was I have no pretension thinking, oh, I'm not an owner builder. I'm going through a builder. Obviously, he's a mate of mine. But the thing that's exciting to me is I'm definitely going to get there on the hemp day, whatever we call it, hemp block day maybe, and or however many days it is, and be part of getting those blocks and putting those blocks into the tongue and groove situation on the bottom of the slab, and then building them up, and then doing a bit of the tapping and like standing back at the 8 hours later the 19 blocks I managed to put,
Yeah,
or have four, or however many I managed to do, and with the sense of I built that. And obviously, there's a whole lot more that has to go on for the house to be built, but the sense of ability to participate in this, I think, is like I'm really excited for it. I'm not doing it because I'm motivated by the monetary aspect of that necessarily. It probably will save me money. I don't know, but it feels far more empowering, and feels like I can be part of the equation and the outcome rather than just a bystander who's like, oh well, hopefully someone does a good job, and hopefully
yeah,
it's
yeah,
great.
absolutely. No, that's Vince. You're completely right. This is what we really love, and this is what we see as well. We have another owner builder not too far from Brisbane here, and he's there in the weekend, and he sometimes video rings me out. Oh, what was this again? Because they all follow a training, and they're all confident after the 3 day training. Like, okay, we know what we're doing now. That was absolutely worth it. So we're on to it. Also, by the way, that will satisfy the certification that we have, because we just can't sell a product to anyone like you work it out yourself, read the online manual, look at some YouTubes. No, we want to make sure that people do the right, also safety wise, do the right thing. So it's fantastic to see even him and his partner uh, doing such a neat job, bit by bit, just building it like it's just so lovely to see. And then I know for them, it's they're now in a process, whatever they are, halfway walls. But I know at some stage they'll have this fantastic satisfaction that, like you say, they're able to stack up their blocks, with or without the help, in your case, of builders. But they have done their part, and yeah, that's a I
It's
just love
super, super rewarding. And has anyone got kind of addicted? I imagine once you do one, you're like, "Ooh, let's do another one." Does that happen?
yes. Well, so we built one here for a fantastic couple, and he's got a bit of land, and said, "Oh well, my brother's going to live on this land as well. So why don't we just build him a second hempblock house? This is so fantastic." So they're two on one allotment. So yeah, there's a bit of addiction there, I think, and we hope to. Yeah, so we're talking about a lot of individual people, and this is where the market starts. But when we're talking about bigger projects, I mean, I've just been to France where they built three high-rise buildings out of the hemp block. What is it? 4,000 square meters or something like, apartments, social housing, and that's where we really like aiming for, to have more structures built by bigger builders that get onto it and go like, oh, actually, all these bits and pieces that we need for the standard building methods, why don't we just replace the walls for hemp blocks, the load bearing system, and lime render? Boom, off she goes. And inside you can actually put plasterboard if you want, as long as you don't paint it
Yeah,
with plastic paint. You can put a clay render on the inside if you wish.
yeah,
Yeah, so the alternative, it slowly ebbs away and becomes like a very good option. Like that is, and it won't, what do you call it? There won't be any callbacks because hemp and lime
right.
petrify. There's no foam. There's no petrochemicals that may resolve after a while, and which is already happening. All these foam products, out there filled with concrete, that they just don't they
They
won't
don't
last.
last. They're not.
They won't
Yeah,
last.
it's interesting. So I work a lot with metal and leather, and you have this idea of a patina, this thing that's organic that gets better over time because it essentially integrates into the environment rather than breaks down in the environment. And it sounds like there's something similar going on here. So in your case, the petrification rather than the patina, but same concept.
Hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Super fascinating. And then, so like you touched on a little bit, like this idea of doing much bigger builds, and this being the obvious choice for someone who's looking at this probably largely through an economic lens, not just a comfort lens or an environmental lens. So, from your perspective, like what's the road ahead look like, and what are some of the technologies or innovations that you're thinking about next to go from 1 to 10 or 10 to 100, like to the next sort of scale leap up in your evolution?
Well, we don't need to take over the whole building, walling systems. There will be always timber frame, and that's fine. If we can get a percentage, 1% of the total walls created in a country, that'll be fantastic. And I think the country needs that as well. So moving forward is getting jobs like here locally, right here at the Olympic Games. The 30, those supply for them, so that people that then stay in those buildings, they go like, this was so cool here, it was so nice to be. There was no air conditioning, we didn't need it, or it was very little air conditioning, if that. Um, so, so so Olympic Games, social housing, developments of people that really want to make a change and create something that will last, because here we live on a hill and we look down on the other hill, pop, 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 of same thing all over again. Timber frame and cement cladding and insulation, they go up, but after 20, 30, 35 years, they will be broken down again to be replaced for something else. So the
Mm-hmm.
investment of the house is also not really, it's not sustainable. People pay whatever these days, $750,000 to get a house built without the land, and
Hmm.
then in 5, 10, 15 years, it will be broken down. So the money is gone, and then you have to pay to demolish it. You've got a lot of land. Uh, land. So the way forward is bigger projects. Get the hemp, industrial hemp, because don't forget this plant is, yes, it is a family of the marijuana plant, but it's a very different family. Hemp goes up straight up to 6-8 meters if you want. Nice, it can be really thick, and contains 0.2% of THC. The stuff that can make you dizzy or stoned. So it's not a drug plant. So stimulate the growing of industrial hemp all over the place, like worldwide, because now with these factories, we can put all that hemp wood. We can put those stalks into those blocks and build houses out of it. What
Right.
remains of the plant, which is actually leaves, sometimes seed, but also the fibers. The fibers can be used for fluffy insulation. The fiber can be used for clothing and car parts, plastics, batteries. It's a really amazing product, that industrial hemp. So way forward is, bigger projects, more housing, more factories, which is what we're working on, and then therefore more growing of hemp. Sequestering more carbon, just cleaning the soil. Industrial hemp cleans the soil. So if you plant hemp in your backyard that has been polluted, which is what is actually happening, pardon me, is what's happening right now. A little story here in Holland, and I came across this story when I was in Denmark last, talking to a Dutch guy, and you're talking about hemp while having a coffee, and he said, "Yeah, I am." I can get seed from the council, hemp seed, to grow in my backyard, because where I live, in the olden days, there was a chemical plant, and they were not really clean with their soil. That soil is polluted, but the houses are there. They don't want to break down the houses and get diggers in those small backyards in Holland. So they get stimulated to grow hemp in their backyard. That hemp will d- suck up the pollutants that are in there, and take it away. So it cleans the soil. So yeah, big picture is growing more hemp, using it for all the bits and pieces we can use it for. Build more houses.
Yeah, scale the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think once you've got a system that works at a small scale, then all of the things that are true about scaling apply beautifully, right? If you build a product that's profitable at very, very small scale and like economically viable, as in like it can compete, and
Hmm.
suddenly like, all right, let's go from 1,000 square meter to 10,000 square meter facility to make these blocks, and all the other input costs remain the same, well, then the blocks come down by 10% and people like want them more. And then that obviously then like the flywheel happens very quickly once you work these things out, especially in physical products I've observed. So I have one final question, which I ask everyone. I want to understand your least favorite part of working on this problem in this space, and your favorite part of working on this problem.
The least the problem, the least favorite part. Well, there's
And
always
favorite part. Least and favorite.
the least favorite one, but it's kind of, what can I say? See, I'm quite I'm a positive person. I don't like to think about negative things, because it doesn't go anywhere. I don't like to think too much about the fact that people hassle me about the price of the product a lot, while it's actually imported, even importing as we are at the moment, until we've manufactured, which will happen in about 2 years. Even imported, we're absolutely not on the super high level of walling materials. So you've done your home. You can ask any builder, how much would this design, how much you reckon it would cost, and you won't be far off the original price of the having something with the similar properties, of course, instead of a thin little wall that you can just run through. So yeah, talking, least favorite is really people asking about the price and not knowing, what they bet for, and going like, no, we prefer to build something cheap, because I just know, of all those reasons that I mentioned before, their investment won't be really worth it in the end. That's kind of, I guess, my least favorite part. Maybe add the fact that the support. Okay, here we go. We're in an industry that is innovative. We're in an industry that improves life, right? We really this is improving lifestyle. The houses are healthy, they're safe, and we are environmentally friendly. The houses are carbon negative. A lot of houses are definitely carbon positive. So to then have to fight to get your funding, to fight to get support, or to have to work really hard in creating a positive impact on life, on the people, on the country, on whatever, government, name it, positive. You have to work really hard, just like health food or really good alternative healing methods. People have to work really hard to make this happen, and that's frustrating. Actually, this is probably the most frustrating part. If you want to do something nice, then is it not accepted? No. We have these other systems in place, and then we're talking about money manipulation, corruption. This the whole thing that most of the world is running on. So that's Actually, let's make that the least favorite part.
And what's the favorite part?
The favorite part is just the success that people have when and the love they feel for their own home. The fact that they move in and the happiness, the solution, the fact that they live in a house that doesn't have mold stuck everywhere. We have actually a lot of clients that come to us with health problems, or they want to be really health conscious. And I hear the stories about people that lived in mold houses that have damage in the system that can stay there up to 20 years from living in a mold. That goes into your skin. It's terrible to think about. So the success is where people love where they live, where they love what they've built. And then the whole life philosophy kind of around that, where they go like, we really want to do positive things. Like now, movie stars getting onto it. Zac Efron is building with hemp, and people are getting onto it. That is just fantastic. That people then take on that positive part thing and do work really hard to choose for it. That's what I love.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I'm personally invested in it, and I mean, I'm having to build in a flame zone area, and so that's how I came across the product initially. But I live in a house that has mold, and it frustrates me, and it's cold, and it's got exactly the wind, and like it's in the Blue Mountains, like it's in a cold place. It just drives me bananas. So I'm hoping to be part of the positive, message that you're referring to when I build next year. And I'll report back, or maybe we can use me for a training or showcase or whatever makes sense. But Johan, awesome to have you on the show today, and I was super excited to talk to you about all this. So thank you for breaking it all down for us, and I look forward to seeing you guys when you've got your own plant up and running. That'll be amazing as well.
We will shortly. No worries. Hey, thanks very much, Vincent, and thanks for putting it out there, creating the awareness of the change. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Talk soon.
Okay, ciao.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Shape the System. As usual, if you'd like to suggest a guest, someone that you know who's helped change a system for the better, please go to www.shapethesystem.org, click on the top right-hand corner, then click Suggest Guest. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you get the new episode. Shape the System is an independent podcast with support from KPMG High Growth Ventures. Connects founders to the services they need along their journey. Whether you are looking to refine your strategy, mature your finance function, prepare for a capital raise, expand abroad, or simply comply with regulatory requirements, they provide you with the support you need to drive your business forward.